Deep within the dark, icy forests of North America, a legend persists that chills the bones of those who dare to listen. The Wendigo, a creature born of hunger and desperation, haunts the stories of Native American folklore. The Wendigo's tale is rooted in the cultures of the Algonquian-speaking tribes, including the Cree, Ojibwe, and Innu. These tribes, who inhabit regions stretching from the northern United States into Canada, share a fear of this malevolent spirit. According to legend, the Wendigo was once a human who, in the depths of winter, resorted to cannibalism to survive. Consuming human flesh transformed them into a monster, forever cursed with an insatiable hunger for more. Describing the Wendigo sends shivers down one's spine. It is often depicted as an emaciated giant, its skin stretching tightly over its bones. The creature's eyes are said to glow with a malevolent hunger, its lips bloodied from its ghastly feasts. The Wendigo's skeletal frame is covered in a matted, frost-bitten fur, and its breath is cold, capable of freezing its prey with fear. The presence of this beast is heralded by a sense of dread and an icy wind that chills the soul. Consider the story of a fur trapper named Peter, who vanished in the dense forests of northern Canada in the winter of 1938. According to local tales, Peter had been struggling to find food, his supplies running dangerously low as the temperatures plummeted. Desperation drove him deeper into the wilderness, far from any human contact. Weeks passed, and Peter did not return. A search party, composed of seasoned hunters and trappers, set out to find him. They followed his tracks into the heart of the frozen forest. What they discovered was beyond their worst nightmares. Peter's campsite was a scene of unimaginable horror, the remains of a campfire surrounded by gnawed bones and tattered clothing. The search parties found no sign of Peter that awful night, although they reported feeling an overwhelming sense of dread and a bone-chilling cold that seemed to emanate from the forest itself. Some spoke of hearing whispers carried in the wind. Others swore they saw glowing eyes watching them from the darkness. The legend of Peter's encounter with the Wendigo spread, warning others of the lurking danger in the wilderness. This monster not only packs a physical threat, but carries within its arsenal a psychological one as well. Its presence is said to drive people mad with fear. So, to all of you out there tonight, perhaps in the path of the one known as the Wendigo, I leave you with this. Do not fear the dark legends of the past, for these are the ones who summon the hellish creatures within. For if you allow your mind to wander too far, you never know. You might just be the Wendigos. Next little snack. Nestled in the Midwest, where the cornfields stretch as far as the eye can see, a sinister legend has taken root. This is the story of the Cornfield Stalker, a figure that has haunted the dreams of locals for generations. The legend of the Cornfield Stalker dates back to the early 1900s. It's said that a farmer, driven mad by the loss of his family, became this stalker, forever bound to the fields he once tended. According to legend, This sinister farmer turned monster wore a grotesque mask that hid his true identity. Those who have seen him describe an overwhelming sense of dread, as if the very air around them had turned to a bitter cold. And the legend persists to this very day. Enter Alex Freeman, a young boy whose disappearance in the early 80s swept the nation with fear upon walking home just outside of the cornfield belonging to the farmer who'd gone mad. He was with his best friend that day, and although Alex has not been seen since, his friend Jacob Baker never forgot what happened that tragic afternoon.
We were walking home from school when Alex had an idea. We were both in a hurry. We were expecting the newest edition of Mustang magazine. Alex and I were really into cars as children. Anyway, we were both excited and decided to cut across the cornfield. It would have been about a mile or so to the other side. Would have cut off about an hour of walking. We knew it was private property, but as children, we really didn't worry about the consequences. We were about halfway through when we first saw him.
After laying eyes on the Cornfield Stalker firsthand, a legend that was popular in their community, but hardly believable, Alex and Jacob ran as fast as they could, hoping to lose the alarming figure within the thick maze of corn stalks.
In the heat of the moment, we both ran. I remember Alex taking his backpack and throwing it at the figure. I guess he was trying to distract him.
The two ran as fast as they possibly could, but they soon realized they were lost. Trying to get a hold of their bearings, they looked around to see which way they should head next. But that was when things took a turn for the worst.
It's like he was studying us. It's like he was deciding how to do it. You know, like trying to decide how to take the both of us.
The two froze in place. They had no idea what to do.
That was when I ran. I ran as fast as my feet would allow. And I got pretty confident too. I didn't hear him behind us. I felt like we were creating a good distance between us and that thing.
But that was when it happened.
The screaming caused me to turn around.
And when he did, Alex was gone. But Jacob didn't give up without a fight. He went back for his friend that day. He went back for Alex. And after walking cautiously through that cornfield, Jacob found what he was looking for.
He had a wound on the side of his face. His face and lips were all bloody.
That was when Jacob noticed something. He wasn't alone. Standing over Alex's body was the Cornfield Stalker.
I started running again, as fast as I could. His family still blames me for that.
Alex's tragic ending was investigated. After coming home and telling the story to his parents, the police were called. They noted in their report that Jacob's story just didn't add up. So the investigation took an ugly turn. They began to focus on Jacob and his family. They began to investigate the Bakers. Ultimately, the Bakers were exonerated of any wrongdoing. But the community never forgot. The fact that the police never found any evidence of foul play, suspicions only grew of Jacob's tall tale. Alex's whereabouts, still unknown, was reported as a disappearance case that eventually turned cold. Although Jacob had moved as an adult, he still got threatening phone calls and disturbing items delivered to him in the mail. And though Jacob would live the rest of his life, keeping consistent to his story, it wouldn't be until many years later when he would find himself no longer alone on what he believed happened that day. Sarah and her aunt were driving home from church that Sunday. As they were making their way down through a farming community, she spotted something peculiar. A figure standing eerily outside of the crops they were passing. More precisely, the cornfield Alex had last been seen. As the two slowed down, Sarah managed to snap a picture. After posting the photo on social media, the community of the small town demanded a search for this cornfield stalker. shedding credence on Jacob's childhood story. But the police stonewalled the demand, stating the photo was simply a hoax. To this day, Sarah stands by her story. Many others, while comparing the photo taken, the undisputed authenticity of the photo itself, and the lack of any ties to the controversy by Sarah or her aunt, are led to believe that the stalker may actually exist after all. And they always say the same thing. If you ever find yourself near a cornfield in Indiana, keep a camera handy. For the next man you see wandering the highway's grassy banks, well, it just might be. The Cornfield Stalker.
In the remote corners of the Americas, from the desolate deserts of the Southwest to the dense jungles of Puerto Rico, an eerie silence often gives way to a blood-curdling cry. This is the realm of the Chupacabra, a creature of legend and nightmare that has haunted rural communities for decades. The tale of the Chupacabra first surfaced in the early 1990s in Puerto Rico, when farmers awoke to find their livestock dead, each with 2 puncture wounds on their necks and their bodies eerily devoid of blood. These incidents sparked panic and speculation, with locals attributing the gruesome attacks to a supernatural beast. As sightings and reports of the Chupacabra spread across Latin America and into the United States, so did the descriptions of the creature. Some witnesses claimed it resembled a monstrous reptile, standing on 2 legs with a row of sharp spines running down its back. Others described it as a hairless, dog-like beast with a gaping mouth and elongated fangs. Amongst the variations, one detail remained consistent: the Chupacabra's insatiable thirst for blood. Urban legends began to take root, with people claiming to have seen the creature lurking in the shadows, ready to strike at any moment. Stories of close encounters proliferated, each more terrifying than the last. In one such account, a farmer in Mexico recounted how he came face to face with the Chupacabra while checking on his livestock late at night. The creature, he said, had glowing red eyes that seemed to bore into his soul, and a foul stench that made his skin crawl. Paralyzed with fear, the farmer could only watch as the beast silently slipped away into the darkness, leaving behind a trail of death. Despite the widespread panic and numerous reports, no definitive evidence of the Chupacabra's existence has ever been found. This has led skeptics to suggest that the legend is merely a product of mass hysteria, fueled by fear and the power of suggestion. Some scientists believe that the Chupacabra sightings can be explained by known animals suffering from diseases like mange, which cause them to lose their fur and take on a gaunt, monstrous appearance. The Chupacabra has also found its place in popular culture, further cementing its status as a creature of fear and fascination. It has been featured in movies, television shows, books, and even video games, each portrayal adding another layer to the already complex legend. In some adaptations, the Chupacabra is depicted as a mindless predator, driven solely by its need to feed. In others, it is portrayed as a tragic figure, a once human entity cursed to roam the earth in search of sustenance. One of the most significant impacts of the Chupacabra legend is its effect on local economies and communities. In areas where sightings are frequent, the fear of the creature can lead to real-world consequences. Farmers may suffer significant financial losses due to the death of their livestock, and the constant anxiety can take a toll on mental health. In some cases, communities have banded together to form hunting parties, determined to capture or kill the elusive beast. These hunts often end in disappointment, but they serve to strengthen the bond within the community and provide a sense of purpose in the face of an unknown threat. Despite the skepticism and scientific explanations, the legend of the Chupacabra continues to endure. It is a testament to the power of folklore and the human propensity to find meaning in the mysterious and unexplained. The Chupacabra represents a bridge between the known and the unknown, a reminder that there are still things in this world that defy explanation. In recent years, the legend has even sparked interest among researchers and cryptozoologists who dedicate themselves to studying creatures like the Chupacabra. These researchers hope to uncover the truth behind the sightings, whether it be a new species, a misunderstood animal, or merely the result of overactive imaginations. Until then, the Chupacabra remains a shadowy figure, haunting the fringes of our collective consciousness. As night falls and the shadows lengthen, the stories of the Chupacabra come to life once more. The creature's legend, filled with terror and mystery, continues to be told around campfires and whispered in hushed tones. It is a story that transcends generations, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lies just beyond the edge of the light. And as long as there are those who believe in the unknown, the Chupacabra will continue to prowl the night, a spectre of fear and fascination.
It was a cold and stormy evening when Leana decided to take a walk in the eerie, dense forest on the outskirts of her town. The place was infamous for its strange occurrences and ghostly legends. The locals called it the Whispering Woods because of the unnerving sounds that seemed to emanate from within, especially at night. But tonight, driven by a mix of curiosity and a desire for solitude, Leana ventured into the forest, her flashlight guiding her way through the labyrinth of trees and underbrush. As Leana walked deeper into the forest, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The air grew colder with each step, and an eerie silence replaced the usual sounds of nocturnal creatures. The moon, partially obscured by thick clouds, cast a pale, ghostly light through the branches, creating twisted and sinister shadows that danced around her. Despite her growing unease, Leana pressed on, drawn by an unexplainable force that seemed to pull her towards the heart of the forest. After what felt like an eternity, Leana stumbled upon a clearing. In the center stood an old, decrepit cabin, its wooden walls covered in moss and vines. The windows were shattered, and the door hung loosely on its hinges. The sight of the cabin sent a shiver down her spine, but the compulsion to explore was too strong to resist. She approached cautiously, her footsteps crunching on the dead leaves that carpeted the ground. As Leana reached the cabin, she hesitated for a moment before pushing the door open. It creaked loudly, echoing through the stillness of the night. Inside, the air was musty and thick with the scent of decay. The room was dimly lit by the moonlight filtering through the broken windows, casting an otherworldly glow on the dusty, abandoned furniture. Cobwebs hung like curtains, swaying gently in the cold breeze that seemed to emanate from nowhere. As she moved further into the cabin, her flashlight beam flickered, casting sporadic light on the walls covered in strange, cryptic symbols. Leana felt a chill run down her spine as she realized that the symbols were not random markings, but something far more sinister. Her heart raced as she noticed a large, ornate mirror at the far end of the room. Unlike the rest of the cabin, the mirror was pristine, its surface gleaming with an unnatural light. Drawn to the mirror, Leana approached it, her reflection staring back at her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. As she reached out to touch the glass, a sudden gust of wind slammed the door shut, plunging the cabin into darkness. Her flashlight died, leaving her in pitch blackness. Panic surged through her, but she forced herself to stay calm, her eyes slowly adjusting to the dim light from the moon. Then she heard it, a faint, ghostly whisper, barely audible over the pounding of her heart. The whisper grew louder, echoing through the room surrounding her. The hair on the back of her neck stood on end as she turned towards the source of the sound. To her horror, she saw a shadowy figure materializing in the mirror. The figure was a tall, gaunt man with hollow eyes and a twisted smile. His presence exuded malevolence, and Leana felt a cold wave of fear wash over her. The man's lips moved, but the whispering voice seemed to come from all around her. "Leana, it said, sending a shiver down her spine. "You should not have come here." Frozen in terror, Leana tried to back away, but her feet felt like they were rooted to the floor. The figure in the mirror reached out, his hand passing through the glass as if it were water. Leana watched in horror as his hand solidified, fingers like icy tendrils wrapping around her wrist. The touch was freezing, sapping the warmth from her body. Desperate to escape, Leana mustered all her strength and broke free from the spectral grip. She stumbled backward, knocking over a table that shattered on the floor. The noise seemed to break the spell, and she regained her ability to move. She turned and ran towards the door, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The whispers grew louder, more frantic, as if trying to stop her from leaving. Bursting through the door, Leana sprinted into the forest, the cold air biting at her skin. She didn't dare look back, fearing that the malevolent spirit was right behind her. The forest seemed even more sinister now, the trees closing in on her, their branches like skeletal hands reaching out to grab her. The whispers followed her, growing fainter with each step she took away from the cabin. After what felt like an eternity, Leana finally emerged from the forest, her heart pounding in her chest. She collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath, the whispers fading into the distance. The town's lights were visible in the distance, a beacon of safety and normalcy. She vowed never to return to the Whispering Woods, but the memory of that night would haunt her forever. Nestled in the quiet village of Borley, Essex, stood a house that would become infamous as the most haunted house in England. Borley Rectory, built in 1862, was a Gothic-style mansion that housed the rectors of the parish and their families. However, it wasn't just the architectural grandeur that drew attention. It was the chilling tales of paranormal activity that would captivate and terrify generations. The story of Borley Rectory begins with its construction by Reverend Henry Dawson Ellis Bull. The house replaced an earlier rectory that had been destroyed by fire in 1841. Reverend Bull moved into the new rectory with his large family, and it wasn't long before strange occurrences began to unfold. The Bull family reported hearing unexplained footsteps, whispers, and the sound of bells ringing. The eerie atmosphere seemed to grow with each passing year. One of the most enduring legends associated with Borley Rectory is that of the ghostly nun. According to local lore, a Benedictine monk from a nearby monastery had an illicit affair with a nun from a convent. When their forbidden love was discovered, the monk was executed, and the nun was bricked up alive within the convent walls. It is said that her restless spirit still roams the grounds, seeking solace and redemption. In 1928, Reverend Guy Eric Smith and his wife moved into the rectory. Almost immediately, they experienced a series of inexplicable events. Mrs. Smith discovered a human skull in a cupboard, and the couple reported seeing ghostly apparitions, including the infamous nun. Desperate for answers, they contacted the Daily Mirror, which in turn brought psychic researcher Harry Price to the scene. Harry Price's involvement would cement the rectory's reputation as a paranormal hotspot. Price conducted several investigations and documented numerous strange occurrences, including objects moving on their own, mysterious writing on the walls, and sightings of ghostly figures. His reports attracted widespread media attention, and Borley Rectory became a magnet for thrill seekers and paranormal enthusiasts. In 1930, Reverend Lionel Foister, his wife Marianne, and their adopted daughter moved into the rectory. The Foister period was marked by some of the most intense and disturbing paranormal activity ever recorded at Borley. Marianne Foister claimed to have been physically attacked by unseen forces, and the family experienced poltergeist activity, including objects being thrown, windows shattering, and unexplained fires breaking out. In 1939, a devastating fire severely damaged Borley Rectory. The cause of the fire remains a mystery, but it marked the beginning of the end for the infamous house. The rectory was eventually demolished in 1944, but the stories of its hauntings continue to captivate the public's imagination. Despite the numerous reports of paranormal activity, there are still a good share of skeptics. The Society for Psychical Research conducted its own investigation and concluded that many of the phenomena could be explained by natural causes or were outright fabrications. Harry Price's credibility was also called into question, with some accusing him of exaggerating or even staging events to bolster his reputation. Even though Borley Rectory no longer stands, its legacy endures. The tales of hauntings and ghostly encounters continue to inspire books, documentaries, and paranormal investigations. The story serves as a reminder of the thin veil between the known and the unknown, and the enduring human fascination with the supernatural.